Hey everyone, today we are going to be learning how to draw a pumpkin that has form. So not just a flat two-dimensional looking pumpkin, no, we are going to learn how to draw more of a 3D looking pumpkin. So let's get started. So let's see what we need to get started here today. We're going to need a piece of white paper. If you have watercolor paper or a thicker piece of white paper, that would probably work even better than just copy paper. I'm just using white copy paper though, and my paper is turned horizontally or landscape style. If you want to turn your paper vertically, that's fine. You're also going to need a pencil and some washable markers. Now the colors of washable marker that I have today are orange and yellow. I also have a brown and a green. Now, washable markers are pretty much any marker, just as long as it's not a permanent marker, because we will be adding some water to our marker today. Okay, so make sure you have some colors of washable marker. I also grabbed a black for my background. You know me, I like to add lots of contrast to my artwork. But these are the two main colors that we'll be working with, that yellow and orange marker. Okay, you're also going to need a cup of water and a paintbrush. And if you don't have a paintbrush at home, you could also just use a Q-tip for this project. Okay, so let's get started with drawing our pumpkin here. I have my pencil and my piece of paper, and I am going to practice drawing my shape first. I'm drawing a big oval that is cropped off of the bottom of my paper, and I'm practicing drawing it first with my finger. It's just easier that way for me. Sometimes it's just easier to draw with your finger. Practice first. So after you've practiced your line, then you can start. I just drew an upside down U or a rainbow shape near the top of my paper in the center. And now I'm extending it down to the edge of my paper, and you can see that we don't see that whole shape at the bottom. It is cropped off of the bottom of my page. Okay, so that is our first shape, our first middle section of our pumpkin. Next, we are going to draw, and I'm going to practice with my finger again, another oval, but this oval is going to look like it's behind your first oval. It's kind of shy, it's like hiding behind that first oval. And again, this is called overlapping, where we have our first oval in front of our second. Now pumpkins are pretty symmetrical, which means they look like they're the same on both sides. They're not perfectly symmetrical, however, but they do look pretty similar on both sides. So I'm going to make sure to draw my ovals on each side of my pumpkin, and I want to make sure that I have an equal amount of ovals on both sides. So I'm just going to add two more carefully, and there you have it. That is our basic pumpkin shape. Now we can tell that it is not just a two-dimensional looking pumpkin. If it was, we probably would have just used straight lines instead of these nice curvy lines which show form. So now let's talk about that pumpkin stem. If you remember from the video that I just showed you, stems are not just rectangles, they are more organically shaped. So I'm going to start my stem with an ellipse, just somewhere above my pumpkin. I'm making mine off to the right a little bit. And now I'm going to do a nice curved line down to meet my pumpkin, and on the other side as well, a nice curved line down to meet my pumpkin. So there's my stem. It's pretty organic. It's not perfectly geometric in shape. And now we are ready to add some color. So remember, another way to add form to a drawing is to add different values or shading to that drawing. So I'm going to use my orange marker and my yellow marker to do just that. I want to add different values on the different sections of my pumpkin. So what I'm going to do with my orange marker is I'm going to do some thick lines. So you see I'm going to use the thick part of my marker. I'm not going to do skinny mini lines like that, no way. We are going to use the thick part of our marker and draw some thick lines on the inside of each of our sections of our pumpkin. Okay, so I did one thick line. Now I'm going around and I'm doing a second one. I want to make sure that I have nice, thick orange lines on the inside of all of those shapes that we drew. So again, I did it once. I'm going to go around again. Now it's important that we have these thick areas because when we go in with our paintbrush and our water and we're creating marker paint, we're going to need some paint to work with here, right? And in this case, we're turning our marker ink into paint. So again, we want to make sure those lines are nice and thick. Sometimes it helps to turn your paper. That's what I'm doing here. Okay, so there you have it. It already looks like it has more form now, doesn't it? We can tell there's shadows and some highlights of white, but let's add a little more pumpkin-y colors. I'm going to go in with my yellow marker and again use the thick part of my marker, and I'm just adding some lines of yellow. I'm not coloring all of the white spots in, I'm leaving some blank because we will be going in with a paintbrush, so that is okay if it's not perfectly colored in. So now is the magical part. Oh wait, it is not the magical part yet. We need to do our stem, don't we? I almost forgot about that very important part. So remember, the stem is an actual vine. It is not just a rectangle that hangs out on top of a pumpkin. This stem is more brown than green. This is a pumpkin I grew from my garden. You can see that it's brown and it has these lines on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with my brown marker and outline the shape of my stem carefully. And then I'm also going to add some lines, some parallel lines, which are lines that are next to each other. And these lines kind of follow the shape of my stem. Now, finally, hello, now is the magical fun part where we get our cup of water and our paintbrush or our Q-tip out, and we are going to make some marker paint. Here we go. I have my paintbrush, and what I'm going to do is dip it into water and just run it over the orange and the yellow areas and blend them together. So again, I dipped, I swiped a little bit of that extra water off, and I'm just going to touch my orange and I'm going to drag it into my yellow. I need a little bit more water. We don't want to use too much water because, well, I'm sure you know what will happen. Our paper will wrinkle up a lot and it might even rip a hole. So just be careful. Don't use too much, but don't use too little. You can see that I am taking a lot of the orange and mixing it in with my yellow using my paintbrush. And again, you can do the same thing with your Q-tip if you do not have a paintbrush. So what I'm going to do is just go into each section, put some water with my paintbrush on my orange, and drag it into the areas where there is yellow and white spaces. This is a blending technique. We are blending our orange ink with our yellow ink, and we're creating kind of a yellow-orange color. This gives us another value of orange. Remember, a value is a lightness or darkness of a color. By having both orange, like dark orange, and lighter orange, yellow orange, it gives our pumpkin a more realistic look, and it really does add to the form of our pumpkin. It makes it look more three-dimensional. So I'm finishing up here. I'm finished with my pumpkin body. Is that what it's called? I don't know. The main part of my pumpkin. And now I'm going to go up to the stem. Up here. I'm just going to dip, dip, swipe, swipe. And just apply some water, and you can see that my marker paint is activated. And I'm just painting my water all throughout my stem. Alright, there's my stem, there's my pumpkin. It looks pretty awesome, doesn't it? It looks like it's popping off the page because we used curved lines to create form, and we also used different values. We created different values within our pumpkin. We have highlights, we have shading, all using marker paint. Pretty magical, isn't it? Alright, so let's talk about the background. I'm going to be using my black marker to draw a pattern in my background. The reason I'm using a black marker is to add lots of contrast to my artwork. Now, you don't have to use a black marker. You all know that's how I roll. I just like a lot of contrast in my artwork. If you want to create a pattern in your background with a colorful marker or different colors, that is totally cool with me. Just please make sure that you add either a pattern in your background or a different background. Alright, so here's my completed artwork. You can see that we have a form here. It looks more three-dimensional than it does flat. That is because we used curved lines to draw our pumpkin. We also used marker paint to add different values. We have highlights and shadows on our pumpkin's body. So please make sure for this project, follow my directions with drawing the pumpkin. Use your marker paint to create different values. If you don't have markers at home, you can use crayons to create the same type of drawing. You just can't use water, but just draw yellow in the center and orange on the outside parts of your shapes, and you should achieve the same look. Also, please make sure that you have a background for your pumpkin. Don't rush, take your time, and most importantly, have fun.